Malaga Radio.
Freshly squeezed.
The juice on all the daily events along the coast.
With just a little bit of zest.
You're listening to Malaga Radio Diary. I'm Carmen.
And I'm Baptiste. This is Culture and Exhibitions this week, covering Monday the 17th to Sunday the 23rd of August. And while Malaga is very definitely living through Feria this week, the museums, galleries, and performance spaces have not disappeared.
Far from it. We have theater inside Castillo de Gibralfaro, major exhibitions continuing across Malaga, a 2-night festival of Andalusian roots and flamenco in Casares, and some very different visual art in Marbella.
So this is not the guide for somebody trying to fill every hour. It is for the moment when you think, I would like to see something interesting this week, but I'm not quite sure what.
Let us start somewhere that already gives you more than the performance itself. From Monday the 17th through Wednesday the 19th, Una Cita con Chejov is being performed at 9 in the evening in the Plaza de Armas at Castillo de Gibralfaro.
Which means the setting is doing part of the work before the actors even begin. You are inside one of Malaga's great historic landmarks above the city for an evening performance rather than walking into a conventional theater.
And the production comes from Comediantes Malagueños, with adaptation and direction by Cristina Navarro. It draws on short comic pieces by Anton Chejov. So although people hear the name Chejov and sometimes imagine a very serious evening,
Russian despair, long pauses, somebody staring through a window.
Not quite this time. These are shorter satirical pieces built around human behavior, vanity, misunderstanding, and the slightly ridiculous things people do to one another.
Which, now that you say it, sounds less 19th century Russia and more fairly timeless.
Exactly. And I like the combination. You have this historic fortress above Malaga, an August evening, and then comedy based on people being people.
Doors open at 8:30 with the performance at 9. And because this is a dated run, Monday through Wednesday, it is one of the things in this guide that really does belong to this particular week. Now, let us come back down into Malaga, because one of the interesting things about Feria Week is that the visual arts program keeps going alongside it.
Yes, and I do not think we should treat the museums as somewhere you go only because you want to escape the heat. They are doing much more interesting work than that.
So rather than give you a list of galleries, let us give you 3 completely different rooms.
At the Museo Picasso Málaga, there is Joana Vasconcelos, Transfiguración. And this is probably the easiest one to imagine before you even arrive. Large-scale contemporary sculpture, textiles, everyday materials, and familiar domestic objects transformed into something completely different.
So if your mental image of an art museum is rows of small framed paintings, this immediately breaks that idea.
Completely. Vasconcelos takes things associated with domestic life, craft, and decoration, then changes the scale and the context. You stop seeing them as ordinary objects. They become architectural, sometimes playful, sometimes strange, sometimes slightly overwhelming.
Then, a short distance away, the Museo Carmen Thyssen Málaga gives us almost the opposite experience. Los Ribalta y el Barroco Naturalista.
17th century Spanish painting, dramatic light and shadow, figures that feel physical and immediate rather than idealized. This is Baroque naturalism, and the Ribalta workshop helped shape that visual language in Spain.
So we have gone from monumental contemporary textile sculpture to dark 17th century painting.
And then we move again. At the Centre Pompidou Málaga, El Gesto y la Materia looks at international abstraction from 1945 to 1965. Paint that becomes texture, gesture, material. Surfaces that look worked, scraped, built up, or broken apart.
Which gives us a useful way of thinking about the culture guide. You do not have to be interested in art as one giant category. These are completely different experiences.
Exactly. One may pull you in and another may not. That is fine. The interesting thing is that Malaga gives you the choice.
And there is more if you want to keep exploring. At Mucac La Coracha, there is Pas Errázuriz, Poéticas de Resistencia, alongside Tejiendo Historias and Arquitecturas Sin Centro, Archipiélago.
3 very different ways of looking at people, materials, and the spaces we build around ourselves. Photography, textile art, architecture.
At Salas Mingorans, El Nombre del Bicho, Ya Te Lo He Dicho, brings contemporary figurative painting and satire. And at the Colección del Museo Russo, Valery Katsuba, Realismo Romántico dos Uses, photography to look at the human body, movement, and physical discipline.
So even inside Malaga, this is not one cultural mood. You can move from Baroque painting to photography, textiles, architecture, satire, and contemporary contemporary sculpture without leaving the city.
Now let us head west, because on Friday the 21st and Saturday the 22nd, Casares has one of the strongest cultural stories of the week, the 9th Festival Rosa Fina.
And what I like here is that the two nights are deliberately different. Friday is Músicas de Raíz, music of roots. The evening brings together verdiales, traditional music from the Alpuxarra, and the Raúl Rodríguez Trio.
Which makes Friday much broader than just saying Spanish folk music.
Much broader. Verdiales belongs very specifically to Malaga. The Alpujarran tradition comes from a different landscape and history, and Raúl Rodríguez has spent years exploring the connections between Andalusian music and traditions that traveled across the Atlantic. So you have several musical roots meeting in the same evening.
Then Saturday changes direction, Noche Flamenca.
Yes, that night includes Al Blanco with El Peli, guitarist Daniel Casares, and Rafaela Carrasco. So Friday looks outward across different Andalusian roots. Saturday narrows the focus into flamenco.
And that is why I think Rosa Fina works so well in this culture guide. It does not flatten every traditional sound into the same thing. It actually lets the listener hear the difference between them.
And the setting matters too. Casares is one of those white villages where the historic center already gives a performance a sense of place. You are not watching something that could have been dropped into any arena. The village is part of the evening.
Both nights are free entry public events, so if you are in that part of the western Costa del Sol, this is one of the easier cultural events to understand before you arrive. Friday for roots, Saturday for flamenco.
And while we are in the West, Marbella has its own visual art choices this week. At the Museo del Grabado Español Contemporáneo, there is Salvador Dalí, 10 recetas de inmortalidad.
Printmaking, artist books, and Dalí being Dalí.
Which is usually enough of an explanation.
And alongside that is El Poder de Volar, another exhibition using printmaking to explore ideas of flight, movement, and space.
There is also one genuine last chance item this week, Donde los Caminos Llevan a la Sierra finishes on Thursday the 20th. And importantly, that exhibition is at the Centro Cultural Cortijo Miraflores.
Not at the Museo del Grabado.
Exactly. It looks at the landscape of the Andalusian mountains through printmaking. So if that one interests you, Thursday really is the final day within this week.
And at Museo Ralli Marbella, Habitar las Raíces, Prácticas Sensoriales en Territorio continues as another contemporary option. I think there is a useful lesson in all of this. Culture does not have one mood.
No, this week alone, it can mean comedy inside a fortress. A 17th century painting lit almost like a stage. A giant contemporary sculpture made from materials you thought you understood. Photography about resistance. Textiles turned into art. Dalí on paper. And then, on Friday night in Casares, verdiales moving through a historic village.
Followed the next evening by flamenco.
Exactly. So the question is not really, do I like culture? That is too broad. The better question is, what kind of experience sounds interesting today?
And that is our Culture and Exhibitions Guide for Monday the 17th through Sunday the 23rd of August. If you want a dated performance, Una Cita con Chejov runs Monday to Wednesday at Gibralfaro. If you want visual art, Malaga has several major exhibitions continuing through Feria week. If you are heading west, Festival Rosa Fina gives Casares two very different cultural nights on Friday and Saturday. And Marbella adds contemporary printmaking, Dalí, and one exhibition reaching its final day on Thursday.
You can find Malaga radio podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and the other major podcast platforms. For current places, dates, and the details behind this week's cultural events, explore malagaradio.net.
And throughout the week, Freshly Squeezed will be keeping up with the daily events, what is happening that day, what is coming later, and the useful details worth knowing before you head out.
And remember, you do not have to fill every hour of your holiday. Sometimes one exhibition, one performance, or one evening in a village is enough.
From Carmen and me, enjoy the week.
And enjoy whatever catches your curiosity.
Malaga Radio. Malaga Radio.